Ready for roll call, Jen?
Yes. Rubing.
Here.
Marcus.
Here.
Roloff. Here. Hankins.
Here.
McInnes.
Here.
Kuntz.
Here.
Pallarito.
Here.
Powers.
Here.
Very good. Review and approval of the meeting minutes from May 3rd.
Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Chairman. My packet didn't come in. Do you have a printed copy that?
I do.
That would be awesome. Beats trying to see it on a cell phone.
Since we're waiting for that, could I ask a quick question on whether or not something regarding Robert's rules and clarification on voting?
Okay.
In the county, we can't abstain from voting unless there's a clear conflict. We may have to state the conflict in advance. I'm not familiar with it, how it's done here, but as those same rules apply.
What would I have my? Robert rules with me? I think if there's a conflict. I think if there's a conflict, that needs to go on the record. Are you foreseeing a conflict? For
I'm just,
yourself in voting?
I didn't make note of it mainly because I wasn't sure how this board was run, so I never brought it up at the last meeting. Revising of the rules of public, for public comment, there was one abstention. And I believe it is important that I understand how we're supposed to go about, because it's my understanding that you are required to vote unless you have a clear conflict. And you can't abstain to a vote.
You know, I think, I know you're probably thinking about this too. I thought about the same thing. At the county board, you can't abstain, but I don't know whether this committee, whether that rule applies or not.
I think it would, short of reviewing the Roberts Rules abstention area, I think that Robert's Rules would require it, and we're governed by the same rules as most of our counties, if not all of our counties. So I think it is important that if we have an abstention, there does need to be a conflict that's reflected in the record. Is there any other thought on the board in conflict with that?
The only thing I thought you could say from if you had a conflict or something. If you're completely, you got a conflict and you know it, then you shouldn't vote. That's what
But I think what he's asking, Shirley, is that it be reflected in the record as to
Okay.
what that conflict is.
Oh, I don't.
You can't just not agree or give or take. You have to have a conflict which has an influence on something as a result of your vote. Whether it's a personal involvement or financial gain or something like that, you cannot just avoid voting because you either don't want to offend or you're not sure which way you want to go, because that alters the direction of this board, and it's not fair to the people if we don't vote unless we have declared a conflict.
No, that's what
And if there is a problem, you need to continue the conversation until you come to a resolution of what direction you want to go.
I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 3rd, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Roloff,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Pallarito. Any discussion?
There's a couple things on here. And Jennifer, it's not a big deal, but the first motion you have made by Shirley Roloff, supported by Jairus Rubing. The second motion you have motion by Jairus Rubing, supported by Powers. And then the third motion, you're back to both names again. The fourth motion, you have just the last name again. So just for
Gotcha.
consistency
Yep.
sake, we should probably, I don't care which way it is. If you just want to list last names or.
Noted. Yep. Got it. Thank you.
And then the second page, fund balance policy amendment. We have that we did it, but it would probably be pertinent to say why. And it would probably just be something simple like be adjusted to 1.85 months of actual operating expenditures to agree with a settlement.
Okay. I can.
I don't recall what the language was, but that sounds, I mean, hopefully the minutes reflect the language, but that sounds sensible. But
I mean, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. Why did we,
Right.
why did we,
right. Yeah, I mean,
I think I agree with you. I agree with you both. I think the minutes do need to reflect that. I think we could word it to address the settlement agreement with the former health officer.
and that's fine.
yeah, I don't have any problem with that either.
Yeah.
That's worth-
Okay.
Any further discussion from the board on that issue?
Good.
I will make the changes.
Okay, we
Thank-
would, so we would have to amend the motion to approve the minutes to include those changes.
So did Shirley make, you made the motion? right?
Shirley, would you like to amend your motion to include those changes?
Yeah, I think it's important to do.
Okay, thank you.
And the second, I'm fine
Further
with the.
support by-
amendments. Yep.
Mr. Pallarito, any other discussion on the minutes from May 3rd, 2022? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. I stole a mint from Grandma Shirley and I'm a little tongue tied. Mr. Threll, I put my signature on here so you get one.
Thank you. Good. How are you?
Okay, review and approval of the agenda.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner McInnes,
Or
supported by, was that Mr. Rubin? Oh, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Public comment. Speakers are encouraged to use the podium and microphone so that board members can clearly hear their message. Before beginning, the speaker should clearly state their name. The chairperson may implement a sign-up sheet for public comment at any time during a meeting if it becomes necessary to better organize a large public turnout. There's a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. Timing will begin after a speaker's name is established. Upon notification that 30 seconds remain, speakers must make every effort to conclude their comments within this time frame. Upon the oral request of a member of the public, a donor, who is present at a public meeting and wishes to donate his or her speaking slot to another member of the public, and with the permission of the chairperson, which shall not be unreasonably withheld, the speaker may comment for up to 6 minutes, equivalent to 2 public speaking slots. Public comment shall be addressed to the chairperson, not to health department staff or individual Board of Health members. Speakers should be germane, courteous, and respectful during their speaking time. Strongly worded advocacy, however, is to be expected and shall not by itself be considered discourteous or disrespectful by the Board of Health. If a speaker desires to provide materials to board members during the meeting, the speaker or a designee will give the materials to the board's secretary for distribution. The chairperson has the discretion to permit members of the public to speak at times other than those reserved for public comment. These public comment rules will be incorporated with the posted agenda for each public meeting of the Board of Health so that they are readily available to each person who desires to speak at the meeting. The Board of Health expects that each person desiring to speak at the meeting will have read and will comply with these rules. Those are our rules for public speaking. Is there any public comment at this time? We do have a sign-up sheet. Brenda called I'm always messing this name up. Is it called Bida or called Beta? Which would you prefer? Okay, Ms. Colbita. Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other members of the public that wish to address the board? Hearing none. Item number 6, the Dennis Gartland Nygarth contract extension. I don't know if one of the committee members would like to address that, or Dan, if you want to address that. I can do a nutshell. I mean, my
no,
name is
no,
on the
let's-
agenda for it, but.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
fine. I can summarize. So we had brought to the Personnel and Finance Committee a proposal to extend the contract with our current auditors, Dennis Gartland and Garth, for 1 year. Normally this time of year, or this time period, I believe it's after a 3-year time period, we would go out for request for proposal to look at, have other auditors bid on doing that service for us. But given the fact that we don't have a CFO right now, and that role has been vacant for some time, we're just basically shorthanded. Brought the proposal to just extend this contract for 1 year to give us time to use the same auditor. It saves staff time. We don't have to go through with potentially a new auditor and go through basically everything that we do. They're familiar with us. They've been a good auditor to date. So that is what the proposal was brought to the Personnel and Finance Committee, and I believe that they voted to recommend that extending the 1-year contract would be acceptable.
That was my recollection of the meeting as well.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we agreed to go one more year and then continue on once time allowed to RFP a new vendor or another vendor or vendors to review.
Would someone like to make a motion to extend that contract by 1 year?
I'll make the motion to extend that contract for our auditors for 1 year pending an RFP for the following year.
Second, supported, moved by Mr. Pallerito, seconded by Mr. McGinnis. Charis has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Dan, do you know what the fee was last year? On page 9 on the audit, it says the fee for these services will be $23,800. And I was just curious.
I did talk to Andrea Pierce, who's serving as our interim CFO right now. It was lower. That fee is increased, but not substantially. I believe, Andrea, can you speak to what that fee was last year?
So then my follow-up question is, how many of those additionals are we expecting? And that's the $3,000 per additional, correct? Okay, then the next sentence says, our fee to assist the department with implementing the GASB 87 lease standard will be billed at our standard hourly rates. That's a little bit nebulous for me. I'd like to see a number in there. I mean, we have an auditor at Antrim County, and when you sign a contract, they usually tell you what they're going to charge you and the hourly rate. So I'm a little.
Yeah, so the next sentence, they anticipate what that will be, 800 to 1,000. And I think they did that because that standard is a new standard, so they're not quite sure. Is that correct? Yes.
So it's $800 to $1,000 per hour.
No.
Okay. I'm still a little,
Their estimate is from $800 to $1,000. Is my understanding.
and that's just going to be divided out by how many hours? I mean, you would think they have a rate and you would think it would be written.
Is your question what their standard hourly rate is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what are we, I mean, did they charge us $50, $60 an hour last year? And are they expecting to charge us? I mean, everything seems to be going up, but I would still like to see a number on there, you know?
What page is that? Because
It's
There
page
is
9
page
of
9.
the,
Of their letter.
of their letter to us of the contract.
oh, okay, thanks. Okay,
Yeah, it's towards
Oh,
the
I
back.
see. Okay,
It's the
thank you.
second, it's the second to last page.
yeah, I got it now. Our fee will be 23.8. The fee includes compliance testing for one major program under uniform guidance. An additional fee of 3,000 will be charged for each additional major program. But you said there's one additional major program, is that correct? Okay. These fees are expected to approximately 800 to 1,000 if the department provides a detailed lease schedule to it. Okay. I mean, I appreciate your looking closely at this. It looks like the total amount would be 23.8 plus 3. And then possibly an additional 1,000 for a total of 26.8, 27.8. Is that what it looks like?
That was where my logic was going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, don't have a way of evaluating.
Have we, historically, have we had any issue with overcharging or with any part of our dealings with this organization? No. Okay. Mr. Marcus.
You've mentioned a couple of times the major programs, and for the benefit of me not knowing what a major program is, can you give me an example of the major program that you were referencing to? So any dental or mental health services provided, those considered major programs, or is that standard? Not at all. Okay. Thank you.
You have further question, Mr. Rubin?
No, I think I'm clear now. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board regarding this contract extension? Good conversation regarding that. And, I will entertain a motion to authorize me to sign this contract extension with Dennis Gartland in Nygaard.
Well, I'll
We had the
move that,
motion.
Chairman Beal.
We had the motion.
Oh, you have a motion already?
I'm sorry.
Palorino made a motion to.
Right, you know what?
We
You're,
know.
you're correct. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sitting corrected.
We were having
But-
discussion.
Yeah. okay.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we
Except
accept the contract extension. We can have a vote on that, I believe. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move on. Item number 7 on the agenda, health officer job description discussion. Mr. McGinnis said, Scott, what do you want to do with this?
Yeah.
Before the meeting, which is a legitimate question. I think all I would ask is, maybe Mr. Palorito, since you chair
Yes,
the
sir.
Personnel and Finance Committee, if you can give us a brief update on what your discussion was, so that the full board is up to speed
Informed.
with it.
All right, we met last week. We had several, we had copies from the surrounding health departments of their job descriptions. We had our current job description as it sits. And then Mr. McGinnis also brought a copy that his Emmett County's HR had drafted. And I think we generally we tossed it about the committee. We decided to add some items, combine some items from others, and we're awaiting our first draft. We'll have another meeting of the committee to finalize, to prior to, we'll review it and then we'll come to the next meeting, subcommittee meeting and review it and hopefully hammer out any other issues. And that way we can present to the full board, hopefully at next month's meeting, a finished draft of the job description. Anything
Any
I
additional
missed?
Comments or questions for the personnel and finance committee regarding the health officer job description? It sounded to me, Jairus and I were both in attendance as well, and it sounded to me like you guys were a heartbeat away from being done with that.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. There were some well-pointed changes that were going to be brought up, and look forward to having that before the full board for approval. Charlie, you said, I think you said we could have it even by July's meeting.
Yeah, oh, when Rob came in, I said, I think we could be done. Our next meeting is on the 28th at 4:30, and we scheduled it, so it was just prior to the July meeting. And, you know, Dan and the HR person, were gonna add a few non-essential job functions that weren't in there, which were appropriate to add. I think, you know, Christian had some points about the minimum qualifications, and I happen to have the page out of the health code
Health
with
code,
me
yeah.
because I had realized that was a deficiency, so we're incorporating those things. I don't think we've got big issues left. I
No,
was very happy with the discussion. It took about 25 minutes. I think.
yeah, we rolled through it and I think it's nice that we're taking the other health departments and taking the best of and compiling it. So once we get that draft, we can review it and.
Yep.
But yeah, we're real close.
Does the board have any further questions or comments regarding the health officer job description? Hearing none, we'll move on to Mr. Thrall and staff.
Thank you. All right. Well, first of all, I'm gonna start out by having our staff highlight. Emily Uray is from our regional planning department. She is a community, she's going to give an update on the community needs assessment. She's a community health coordinator. And I will invite Emily to address the board.
Good evening. Thank you, Emily. Does Mr. Rubin, you have a question?
Yeah, I think Jane did something like this. Is that correct? And I think I probably mentioned it then, maybe you've heard me say it before, but when I think of communities thriving, one of the issues that we're having right now is inflation. And it's been said that inflation is the cruelest tax of all because those who are the lowest get hurt the most. I mean, if somebody has $25,000 in the bank and it's only worth 20,000 tomorrow, they can still fill their car up with gas. They can still go and buy groceries. They may not be able to hire another person to work for them, or, if they have a bigger house or whatever. But have you delved into inflation at all? And I mean, we get a lot of things from the federal government. I feel like sometimes it's good for us to send some messages back up to them that these are some things that are really hurting people that are living paycheck to paycheck.
How is, and this may be an unfair question, but I don't intend it to be. How is this data shared and how is it then put to use? So I guess, and I appreciate that. I guess I'm looking at the end user. What does an end user, how does an end user benefit from this data in implementing something to improve the health of our community?
So for some people that just work in one sector, it's to experience that sector, you have a very good understanding. You believe that this is the most important thing to working because it is living in that space. So every 3 years. Compare it back out, because sometimes that may be right, but at this moment. Issue is, but then other times. We're during. So we see that in other parallel ones doing it, or as started. Like, how do you? Relate to that feedback and looking at the like.
Are there any limits to who can access this data? So, real estate developers, for example, could have access to this data as well. Okay. It's great to have information, but what we do with the information is more important. I mean, from my perspective, if you have all the data, to use your words, and you put it on the shelf, that's great to have it. Or if you hit, like a library, you have it on the shelf, that's great. But if nobody comes in and checks it out, what's the point? Does that make sense?
We're just in the and then we're working. That so often you forget the gap or carry
Okay, good. Mr. Marcus.
Hi there. I'm just trying to understand the program. So My Thrive is a program that's used by the Community Health Innovations Region, right? Within that, because you have there is an executive director of a group, so that would be the Community Health Innovations Region. And My Thrive is a program that they have developed as far as assessment tools. You are the health coordinator for Department of Health, right?
I'm the first one.
So you're employed with the health department. So that's what I'm trying to better understand the structure and the money and how we use it. And so your employment is with the Department of Health as the emergency preparedness coordinator or health just coordinator or both? Uh-huh.
And so I first. And then my. And so, the. And we got together years before I was out and, identified the real. And so we feel that better. With a school, the public school, their money. And, there was a entity that was. So that's how. Funding that, the hospital contributes and. And then.
I realize that's why I wanted to understand, because I know as a member of the Northern Michigan Regional Entity, we also provide that same type of thing, the same mental health assessments and stuff. So I could appreciate its value. What I just want to better understand is the relationship with the Department of Health and them and the funding source. And that's what I'm looking for. So that was maybe my goal, is to better understand who you are, what you represent, and how they get paid. I've got more questions, but it's not that important now. Okay.
Emily probably didn't plan on the question and answer session, but thank you for taking the time. Any further questions from the board?
One other thing, you said the survey is done every 3 years. So the data that we have, is it 3 years old, or how does that work? Help me understand that.
Very helpful for people who it does typically, we're looking at the, we're looking at the data for the- that's what it means for- that's too small. So,
So yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
All right, anything further from the board?
Just to reiterate, that whole process is mandated with the state by hospital or for hospital.
Anything further? Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Emily.
taking all our questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Thorell.
Yes. So in my reports, we wanted to talk about, so on May 20th in Otsego County in the tornado that devastated parts of Gaylord, and just wanted to give an update about what activities the health department was involved in that response and recovery. So Holly Campbell is going to give that report right now.
Sure, thank you. As you can see from my Board of Health report, thanks, Dan. I just went through and kind of bulleted the items that we were involved in. With the tornado response. We had some staff that were directly affected. It's pretty tragic. If you haven't gone through there yet, there's still lots of work to be done, but as the health department, we have an emergency preparedness coordinator, and I think Dan might have touched on that in some of his, but really she was the one who called John Deming, the Otsego County Emergency Manager, and really started the conversation with how we could help. Given our recent history with COVID, we're really close, I guess you could say, with the emergency management team. And there were some things, that we ended up doing. So we took a generator, to the site that they needed a charging station. We've been assisting the Red Cross and the United Way. We had a couple of staff members that actually went and worked with the United Way for a few days, sorting supplies and, trying to manage all of the people that were coming there. We also decided to take up what's the word I want to say? Some donations from employees. And we, as of today, we got the final count, and the employees of the health department raised $520. And we purchased gift cards with that and gas cards to give to the United Way so they could hand them out. Another really important thing that we did was we made sure that the clients of ours, especially moms and babies that were maybe affected with the mobile home park that was pretty much annihilated, that they had what they needed. You know, so our home visiting nurses really checked in on them and made sure that, you know, they were okay. And that was really important to us. And you can see, you know, the list goes on. Dan was able to secure a few thousand at-home COVID tests. And then we had used our mobile unit to pass them out in the Home Depot and the Walmart parking lot, and they gave out a pile of tests, I believe, that over 600.
650.
Yeah. So, you know, that was one of our concerns is with people congregating, maybe at the shelter or living with other family members, you know, that we would see an uptick in COVID cases. So we got those tests out and our communications team did a great job, you know, with different type of updates as far as, you know, our social media pages, how we could help. And, you know, we just wanted to make sure that, you know, the staff in the county and Otsego County, I work out of that office, that they felt supported and that, you know, we were concerned about them. So I think that's all I have to add. Do you have anything else?
No, just, I mean, I guess I would just say that, you know, our staff, we had a couple staff members that really stepped up. Ellen Templeton put us in contact with the United Way early on and really kind of pulled up her shirt sleeves and got to work. So, you know, we just recognize that it was a very devastating event for the community and just wanted to help. And we were very thankful that our building was spared and our staff, you know, most of our staff were not really directly affected. We had a few staff members that had a few windows blown out and whatnot, but yeah, that's really it. We just, as you know, part of our emergency response, we wanted to do more, you know, but there was only so much you could do because it was really a first responder and then cleanup. But, you know, we were just letting the emergency manager and the county administrator know. And I believe, you know, I called Rob and just, you know, said anything you need, we can help you out. So, but that's it. Just wanted to give you all an update on that activity.
Good. Thank you. Thanks for being available during that time.
And who is our emergency response coordinator?
So our emergency preparedness coordinator.
Yeah.
Coordinator is Chloe Capaldi. Okay. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. The board have any questions for Mr. Thorell? Charlie, go
A
ahead.
couple of quick ones. Do you have any idea of the additional expenses incurred by the health department to respond to this event?
We have not really sat down and calculated that. I mean, we did incur some expenses just with staff. You know, we lent a few staff out to United Way to help out and whatnot. So certainly there was, and then, you know, staff time distributing COVID tests and I believe that Saturday, right after the tornado, that we sent out staff with the generator to help the Red Cross. And yeah, so there certainly was, but we have not calculated that. You know, I don't know that number.
Okay, and the other
Yeah.
question was water quality testing or anything like that? Were any other things that you had to do with the normal environmental public health functions you had to do in an extraordinary way as a result?
The biggest thing, you know, fortunately, water services and sewer service was still intact. So there really wasn't, thankfully, we didn't have any effects from that. And really the only other thing that we did is I engaged Jeremy Brook, who's our new environmental health director, to work with food safety staff. We had a number of restaurants that were affected. They were without power. And then, so there's certain protocol of restaurant just to make sure their food is safe. So our staff worked with them to just make sure that they were taking steps to make sure that the food remained at the correct temperature or threw it out if he needed to. And then, you know, I believe there was some temporary serving of food and for responders and whatnot, and they were working with them to make sure that was done in a safe manner. So,
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful.
yeah. Just a positive comment regarding the United Way. I know they had, you know, people don't like to be told they don't qualify for assistance for whatever reason. I totally agree with that premise.
In this case, they're giving them, I guess they're supposed to be given $100,000 up to $1,000 a month for displaced people who lost their homes, no matter what. So there's no qualification other than proving that you lost your home. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's very cool. That's great.
Anything further from the board, from Mr. Thorell?
I can move on to just to the next subject there in my report. So with that discussion about Gaylord, I just wanted to move in and just kind of talk about our public health and emergency preparedness program. We have received FEP, we call it FEP, but Public Health Emergency Preparedness Grant. Since 2002, every health department in the state and frankly, the country has received that. It was a product of 9/11 in 2001. And this is basically a program that there's oversight from the state health department through their Division of Emergency Preparedness and Response. And it really just maintains readiness for public health response. And I bulleted some of the things that we regularly do and what our emergency preparedness coordinator does. And basically they work hand in hand with emergency management, local responders, local first responders, law enforcement, whatnot. But they're very proficient in the National Incident Management System and incident command structure, which was used during the COVID pandemic and is still in place. They train employees for emergency response, and enforce that ICS protocol, coordinate with the state Department of Emergency Response or Preparedness and Response to maintain the Michigan Health Alert Network membership. Maintain relationships with community partners. There's a lot of planning involved that goes along with all of that. Coordinate with Region 7 EPCs and Region 7 Healthcare Coalition folks. Respond and manage the various aspects of emergency and pandemic response, conduct emergency preparedness exercises, create after action reports, which we're in the middle of that one for the COVID response, which is a pretty huge one. Submit public health emergency preparedness work plans and deliverables to the state. Assist with emergency and disaster preparedness with the health department's emergency and disaster preparedness, and work with public information officers, coordinate and organize emergency service drills and exercises. The list really goes on in monitoring outbreaks and emerging diseases that may affect the local region. I think, with this, everything that's happened, in the past couple of years, the emergency preparedness coordinators throughout the state were front and center in that, working with the emergency managers and local EMS and hospitals and whatnot. And really, in the past, public health emergency preparedness was planning for a short-term response, which, was really meant to be a localized public health emergency. And that's how everything was framed and planned around that local emergency of like a local outbreak, for instance. And so it really, this whole experience in the past few years where it was affecting everybody, every state, everyone in the country, kind of turned that whole model upside down. Where before, if it was a localized outbreak, maybe in only a certain section of one state in the country, you could deploy assets from other parts of the state or other parts of the country to help with that response. And it was really meant to be short term. So I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned from this on how these plans are approached. And I think, with this planning efforts, it's always good. I think the best thing that comes out of that is just establishing the relationships. It's not like when one of these things happen, you go to the shelf, you pull out the plan, okay, flip to the section on what you're dealing with, but it's really meant to give you the framework and establish the relationships with the local partners that you need in a situation like that. And I think, in this whole region, we just had tremendous, response and partnerships throughout the region and throughout the health department's jurisdiction. Can't say enough about that. So So that was just my report on that section there. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. And I just wanted to move on, and just give you a quick update about the lawsuit, regarding concerned parents of Emmett County versus the Health Department of Northwest Michigan. I was, in court, actually, Charlie McGinnis was there as well and watched the proceedings. The case was dismissed. The attorney for the concerned parents of Emmett County, failed to, file a brief or file the correct paperwork in the time frame that was required. And the judge, heard the arguments and decided to dismiss the case. So that ends one of the lawsuits that we're dealing with. So we have the other one that is in the Michigan Court of Appeals right now, and I don't expect will probably be resolved anytime soon. My understanding that court is backlogged significantly, and I'm not exactly sure what the time frame will be on that, but I haven't heard anything of recent on that one. So
That's from Otsego County, Dan?
that's the Otsego County, right? Let Them Breathe is the plaintiff in that one. So, does anybody have any questions about that?
I have
Okay,
Questions without one in sort of one.
okay. The, so just the personnel and finance update, which we talked about a little bit with the job description items, but this is regarding the employee committee. The employee committee presented their compensation plan to the personnel and finance committee. And there was additional information that was requested by committee members, which they will be gathering and then presenting at the next personnel and finance committee, which is June 8th.
June 28th.
I'm sorry, June 28th. June 8th is tomorrow.
So I wanted to make sure everybody didn't go, wait a minute.
Yes, thank you. Yes. And I believe that's concludes my report.
Thank you. Board have anything further for Mr. Thorell? We have a number of department heads here as well. You have their written reports in your packet. If you have any questions, now would probably be the appropriate time.
I've got one.
Mr. McInnes.
These are great reports, and from Jeremy on the Environmental Health Services Division, the number of septic and well permits is striking, the increase. And the question that I sort of asked you in advance, but I wanted to ask publicly with Jeremy here is in the county building inspection department, all of the costs associated with building inspections are covered by fees, but your costs are different. I mean, your payment structure is different. Could you go through that again?
Yeah, and I'll give Jeremy an opportunity to answer that if you don't mind.
How we do it? Yeah.
Okay. And it looked like you had to hire somebody last year to keep, I presume that requesting people want those inspections done promptly for all sorts of reasons.
And you gotta remember.
Yeah. Sounds familiar. I mean, if builders can't get an inspection done quickly, it causes them all sorts of issues. And so same with you too. Okay, that's all I
Yeah,
needed. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I would just say, I add one thing, Jeremy did a great job on this report, and one thing that I think will impact, services, environmental health services going forward is, I'm hearing a number of townships are looking at enacting some sort of inspection ordinance. A lot of them have to do with short-term rentals, which they would, there's a number of things that they address in that. And it could be safety, noise, parking, trash. But one of them is wastewater and water. So just making sure that the septic system is large enough to handle the number of occupants that the place is licensed to accommodate. So that is, likely to affect the number of services that we provide in the future.
But as they expand, you've got a fixed amount to provide an essential service, but then you have the fees on top, which give you some space to cover the cost.
Correct.
And I presume
No.
since your inspectors are on the road, the fuel costs are now becoming a factor for your inspector, correct?
Well, it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Right. And yeah, I mean, right now, we pay the IRS rate for travel, for mileage. So, there's always that leg and
That doesn't even cover gas
no,
anymore.
right. So
No,
as you can
no,
imagine, some
you're right.
staff are
You're right.
complaining about that, but there's, usually a lag before that rate gets, adjusted,
Yeah.
so to speak. So.
Okay.
But that lag is also felt on the other side when gas prices go down, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So in the long run, if you have a large animal vet call, it costs you X number of dollars for the vehicle to show up before they even step out of the car. $65 was the last time I paid that before the vet steps out of the car.
Oh, veterinarian?
Veterinarian,
Oh.
yes. Do we need to look at, and I know everybody's saying, well, these gas prices can't stay like this forever, but that's not a guarantee. Do we need to look at a site response fee in addition to, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking out loud, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thought. Like kind of like depending on how far yeah, that would be a tough one to come up with. Just, if you're only a mile away from an office versus 20 miles out or something, based on that. Or it could be potentially like a surcharge of some sort. Is that what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we could look at if we needed to. I don't know how long these fuel prices will continue the way they're going. It's troublesome, obviously, because you can't really, it affects, everything that you do. You really think about the trips that you're making. I mean, I know one thing that we talked about internally is just to really kind of make sure that you're traveling efficiently, looking at the map, mapping out your sites, not, making sure that you're basically not getting off the beaten path, doing an efficient route. So. Yeah. Basically,
Mr.
we're
Rubin.
making it so they don't have to cross the bridge. So-
That's the goal of everybody who lives in Charlevoix is, do I have to cross the bridge and how many times? You laugh, Charlie, but it's the truth.
I agree with you 100%.
We experienced that on the way into.
Yes. Leave a half hour early now until September. Go ahead, Mr. Rubin.
Yeah, Jeremy, you got a lot of graphs here and they compare 2020 to 2021. And I've seen similar graphs for Antrim County, different things. And 2020 was a fluke year. So if I may. So my curiosity is what happened in 2019, 2020, a lot of things didn't happen. And you're showing that we see a pretty good increase in 2021. So then the question is, are we making up for what didn't happen in 2020? Or was 2020, 2019 and 2020 were actually kind of similar? You know, when I can't see 2019, I don't know that. So that's the questions in the back.
From my understanding, I think it was 2020. Services, and now 2020, 2021, and also.
Yeah, and I did the report for the 2019 to 2020, and that's a weird thing about the environmental health services is where other parts of the health department, you know, the services that were for, let's say, breastfeeding moms or things like that, those kind of stopped, where environmental health never stopped. Like there was a short period where everything was shut down, construction, everything, and then it just got busier and busier. So in a way, EH was not affected from, you know, by the pandemic in a negative way. If anything, it was a positive way, because I think people were exiting the cities of the South and coming to northern Michigan, coming to, you know, they wanted to be here, they wanted to move here, and it really kept things going in the environmental health world as far as that goes. So.
Okay, anything further for Mr. Thorell or any of our department heads?
Hey, Scott, I just want to say that this format that we debated a few months ago, where Matt had talked about highlighting, and this, I think, one department highlighting and then written documents from all the rest, I think it's a pretty smooth process.
I would agree. I would agree. Cheers.
Yeah, I got a couple things for Dr. Meyerson. I had emailed him earlier about ticks. In Antrim County, we have a whole bunch of parks and a lot of hiking areas. And I had emailed him reading this. It seems that mowing some of them may be some of the higher traffic ones. So I was just curious if you had thought any more about that, or we can't mow every trail, but you got some data here. I mean, do we know, do we have more ticks in areas closer to the lake, less? Any feedback in, I mean, if we're going to pick two parks with high volume to mow along the trails so that ticks can't hide in the tall grass, which two should we pick? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then a second question on your report. on your communicable disease report. On your COVID cases, it says case status confirmed probable. Are those two combined into one, or are we only getting confirmed, or how does that work?
Here is if you run a report, all the cases are confirmed, probable. Because sometimes the cases on there, they're actually reproduced by a case. So the suspect is attending the investigation. This gives you an idea of the number of cases that were reported that month that we were confirmed.
So for all of these diseases, that's the case. Is that what you're, okay,
Sometimes, you know, for instance, after COVID, when we were getting maybe 100 and people have an ethics. You know, an actual that. Or, you know, other times, other cases out there, sometimes we have cases that the case that means maybe probable.
so, just take influenza or COVID or any one. Are the ratios between confirmed and probable similar, way different, or?
We like to be, include that to, rather than, they're not concerned. For me, those that reported to us, all of them. They were too much concerned.
So behind influenza, it says flu-like disease with a star behind it. What is that? Is that a?
On the other hand, school was, also watching about. They could let us know that we had a school. So we were dedicated to all the. Yeah. We like them, before, and that is the team that like. That advocacy, those are the people before them, we like them. If you know, it could be something else. When you look at influenza like illness, is reported by schools, is at a very good indicator when you start seeing that go up. You start seeing that rise in the field, whether that's January or February. We know that they're starting that influenza. That's everybody knows what. And in fact, if you still have an influenza, that's pretty unusual, right?
Yeah, and it's really high in Otsego County. Did they have a school outbreak there? Is that our high? Okay. Okay.
Anything further from the board?
Highlight one thing, because thought about my job, is just in Kathleen before I think you'll see, one of the, this is a very small example, but, my drive was previous to health needs assessment. Looking at some of the issues that were identified and chronic disease and improving our rate of chronic disease, the county and one of the highlighted factors as part of that plan. And things were identified by communities that only need access to better food. So what do you do with that data? Well, we can kind of look at what you do to improve people's ability to access healthy food. So they use that data, they use that, in the report, for the grant writing, to have a program that with the US, the grant, the USDA, really purposely to help farmers and sales. We apply the grant, and we're not the only ones to find those things. We're all over the number of things. And you know, that the grant, the community that have passed together, why do they need this grant? And having a team help lead this solution to show that this is identified as an important problem, and it's an important issue, our community wants solutions to it, and we can use that data to push that, and it's not just us, it's to be a community, to be a county, a council, a city, housing, or food, or bike trails, to be that way. And that using that concept data, so that happens also. They want you to show that the community have that together and we can use them like that.
And I'm glad you pointed that out, Dr. Myerson, because that's kind of what I was, exactly what I was asking for is, you know, what do we do with this data once we've got it? So thank you. Mr. Rubin,
I'm talking, but
you are talking and it's getting to be close to 6 o'clock. So
it's the same one on Kathleen's on the farmer's market. So the second paragraph down, it says criteria for inclusion in this program is based on participating with food assistance programs. So the criteria for inclusion, is that farmers who want to sell at the market, or is that buyers who want to buy at the market?
That's the market. So the market's not participating in double up food costs or doing as a trust or with something like that, then we're not able to use that market.
So that's probably why the 5 you have listed, Boyne City, Charlevoix, Gaylord, Mansalona, Petoskey. Those are big farmers markets. A lot of the little farmers markets don't have the ability to do that. Is there any way to make it easier for them? I mean, I live near Ellsworth and we got this little tiny farmers market. There's 8 vendors that come every week. I don't even think they can take a credit card. You know what I mean? But everybody in the town and some people from Central Lake know that they're there. Come there to buy their fresh produce during the summer. Are they they're excluded, or is there, I mean, I'm sure you're thinking in the back of your mind, how can we make it so that, I mean, I know we have seniors that are close to Ellsworth that they don't want to drive any further than they have to, obviously. So I'm sure this is rolled around the back of your mind. This isn't the first time you thought about it. So I'm just curious where or what your thought process is.
We actually wrote that grant over here to include markets that didn't get those programs so that we could work with some of the smaller markets. That was our goal, but that piece of the funding. Because it just but that is something that we talk about regularly. We work with a couple other programs, Groundwork Center, for resilient communities. So, and MSU Extension, and a couple other food access and work groups that are doing working to work with to try to do exactly what you're talking about. That people don't want to travel or don't have a means to travel, they need to go.
So the answer to my question is you thought about it and you applied for it and you got rejected. and it's a federal grant.
So that doesn't mean we're gonna stop applying, it just means that that person that receives that funding is currently working on this program, and once this program starts wrapping up, they're gonna seek out. It's an ongoing process when we receive a grant in our division, those staff people that are working in it usually are committed to a year to 5, depending on the length of the grant. And then they're working with other agencies in our area to try to still coordinate some of that work that they wanted to do, to continue those.
Well, now you're gonna have a lot more ammunition to include the smaller ones because of high gas prices. So
Right.
you can write a whole page on it.
Exactly.
Good point, though.
Okay, anybody but Mr. Rubing have anything? Okay. Thank you all you've been very educational for us and we appreciate that. The next item is item number 9. Dan, do you have a document from Ms. Vogler?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is she not going to be in attendance today?
We have the smaller side room, we have a virtual setup, she will be participating that way.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, you want to do your second public comment before the closed session, just as a thought? Get it out of the way.
Hold that thought. We would have to, I appreciate the sentiment. We would have to vote to amend the agenda now. I think we're gonna be relatively brief, but I've been wrong before.
Let's go with 3.
That
Let's-
sounds like when my wife asked me, how long is the meeting gonna be? I don't
Exactly.
answer that question anymore.
Right.
I just did, and so I'm like, great, I just told her I would be back at a certain time and it ain't happening now.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268H to discuss attorney-client privileged written legal opinion.
Who do you want in the meeting?
I would like all current board members and Mr. Thorell and Ms. Kenny as our note taker.
I'll second that.
Well, you get second first.
Seconded by Mr. Pallarito. Go ahead.
So the purpose of going in closed session without an attorney, without anybody is.
Our attorney is on Zoom in the other
Gotcha,
room.
okay.
Any further question or discussion? All right, it's been moved by myself, seconded by Mr. Pallarito. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. We are in closed session at, I have
I bet you're wanting.
Okay.
See you tonight.
All right.
Yeah, at least I didn't. It's the little thing.
Copies, paper, more paper.
That would be nice.
Mhm.
Scott and Rob think so also. I like mine raw.
Yeah. Beef from Eddington Park.
Okay, the board is all back. We will go back into open session at what time is it?
6:38.
6:38 PM. That's what I have also. 6:38 PM, Jen, we're back in open session. Item number 10 is committee reports.
Make a motion that the finance committee met and recommends approval of the May bills in the amount of $941,050.83 and the May employee expenses of $16,618.55.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner McGinnis, seconded by Mr. Pallarito. Mr. Rubin, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm not on the finance committee. Normally, we're at around 600 to 700,000. Why is May so high? we're almost to $1 million. Just curious, I mean, is there some big, is there a couple big expenses? You know, I mean, this is almost a 50% increase.
Yeah, good point. I have no trace of an idea.
I don't have my documents in front of me.
Mr. Thorell, do you have any input there?
Well, I believe that the settlement agreement was in that.
Oh, I think.
Oh,
check.
yeah.
So-
That
Thank
would
you.
make perfect sense.
Right,
Thank
right,
you.
right.
I was just curious.
No, good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, good point.
Any further question regarding the motion? Hearing none, since we are spending money, Jennifer, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Roloff,
Yes.
Hinkin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Coon,
Yes.
Valerito,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Rubing,
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Okay, anything from Program and Evaluation Committee? Mr. Rubin, you're the chair there.
Nothing
Work continues.
extraordinary. I did ask the committee members that we could take June and July off, so we're scheduling the next meeting for August.
Thank you. You have a date for that yet, Darcy? Or Jen? do you have a
Jennifer, did
date?
we have a date or did we
Yeah.
not?
I think we did. Hold on. Put me on the spot. I think we were looking at August 15th.
August 15th, you said?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wrote down the 15th
I,
because I went
that's,
to your meeting.
yeah, that sounds right.
I'll double check, but
Okay. Anything further, Jess?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Item number 11 on the agenda is back to public comment. Are there any members? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium, state your name. Rob, are you running the timer?
I can, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Freilich and I'm a resident of Emmett County. And I really want to express my appreciation and thanks to everyone at the Health Department for the work they've done and the work they continue to do to keep our communities healthy. The breadth of services, which you're all learning about, is truly amazing. And it includes, working with families, moms, dads, and grandparents to help pregnant women have the healthiest baby that they can have, providing breastfeeding support to all families who request it, and giving them tools to help their children thrive, providing opportunities for all school-age children to make sure their vision and hearing is appropriate, their oral health is evaluated, and their social, emotional, and physical health needs are met, and providing these services at their schools to reduce barriers to care, ensuring that the food at the restaurants we eat and the festivals that we may attend is safe to eat, our water is safe to drink, and our lakes are safe to swim in, and working directly with individuals to help them address barriers to health, whether it is food, housing, transportation, or finding a healthcare provider, and working in clinical settings to provide dental care, immunizations, WIC nutrition services, breast and cervical cancer screening, working with farmers markets like Kathleen was talking about, working with public health emergency responses like the tornado in Gaylord, who would have thought that? And so we are very fortunate that the health department has employees with the education, understanding of accounting for multiple funding sources, and other skill sets needed to seek funding for services from state or federal funds, private foundations, or local community foundations. If the health department doesn't apply for grants, those dollars end up in Detroit, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, or other states. And when the health department secures grant or foundation funding, dollars are brought back into our communities. Employment opportunities are available in our communities, and those individuals buy gas, food, pay taxes locally, and may have children that attend our schools. And most importantly, the good work of facilitating health in our communities continues. So thanks again. Your work is appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Freilich. Any other members of the public that wish to address the board? Seeing and hearing none, we will close public comment. Commissioners update, Mr. Rubin,
Nothing.
Mr. Coons,
No, Pat.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yeah.
Ms. Roloff.
I think I will too, but I would like to say welcome to all the health department employees. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming.
Ms. Powers.
I would just like to say thank you that the health department stepped in during the tornado, not during the tornado, but after the tornado. That was very important and very much appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Pallarito,
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Marcus.
Nothing.
The only thing that I have is on our calendars, and I had Dan remind me, our next meeting would probably be July 5th. So before we set that in stone, that is, so Monday is July 4th, Independence Day,
Right.
and Tuesday being July 5th would be the first Tuesday of the month. Does that create a scheduling difficulty for anyone? Anybody going on summer vacation? over
I mean, my
the 4th of July?
granddaughter's gonna be here and I know I can bring her with me. She's 8. She lives with us. So.
I'm sure she would have a blast, Charlie.
Enjoy our meeting.
Okay. You're good.
Do you want to take it for the next
I'm
week?
fine
I'm good.
If I have a ride.
I can be here on Tuesday, July 5th. Dan, does it create an issue for you?
No, I'm not going out of town or anything like that. So
Okay. The holidays, July 4th, July 5th, we should all go to work, right?
Yep.
So July 5th, 4:30. Right here again, ladies and gentlemen. Anything further for the good of the order? Hearing nothing, I'll take a motion. Moved by Mr.
Second.
Kenneth, seconded by Mr. Pallarito. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Whatever it was, don't move.
It can't.
All right.
Steak.
Christian's on his way to steak.
Steaks at Christmas.